Hey guys, I am very excited to announce that I have become one of the few people who has hit 200k in Matrix. Currently, Cobalt, this guy, Bubbly, and Waxpaw have all done it. I have not saved the score because I want to film some other videos. Now, I'm excited about this because it took so long and so much work, not just from me, but from other people as well, who I will obviously shout out. And even though this is disclaimer, lots of whale territory here, I do hope that the things that I show in this video, such as secret builds, placements, and strategies, will maybe help you guys get closer to your 160s, to your 130s. There should be something valuable in this video for pretty much anyone. Now, with that being said, these scores have already become obsolete because, well, there's already a physical team that is even better than what Cobalt is running with lower awakenings. There's this guy who's running this crazy ass weird magic team that's doing like no damage compared to the other teams, but it's getting higher score. There's always stuff moving forward with Matrix, so I'll make some videos about that later, but I just want to show the teams that I used. Now, the main drawbacks of what I was using are a few things. Number one, I'm one of the only people using Beatrix. I think I'm the only person getting 200 that uses Beatrix. And this is because of two things. Number one is my Valise is only A2, and without the A3, I just didn't feel like it. And Beatrix is my GOAT. I love Beatrix so much. Beatrix is very fun, one of my favorite heroes in the game, and I have her awakened to where I want her to be. Because, I mean, I pulled the A4 from a 1+1, and that was really exciting for me. So I was determined to use her to her fullest potential, which I think I did, and she's a lot of fun to use. So that was one drawback. Obviously, that whole team is basically A5. And then here, I was held back a lot. Last week, I was actually able to only get about 79k on physical, and then I did some augments because the month reset. I was able to do more malware calls because I capped it out last month, and I was able to put some augments on a lot of gear, which ended up raising the score to where it needed to be. I was kind of held back mostly from this Leia awakening. I'm not 100% sure, but this reads to me like it goes from 15% extra increase on top of the 10%, so 25% total. It goes to 15% per stack, which is 45, so it's 55%. It's like a 30% damage increase at A5, and really everyone has an A5 Leia who's getting close to the 200. So I was really held back there, and it caused a bunch of issues. And then A0 Adrian's a little annoying, but for the most part, everything else was chill. Let me put my Leia back. There we go. Now, with that being said, I do kind of want to get into the run. Let's go over the magic. The magic is a lot less interesting, I will say, but there is still some important stuff, mainly with the placement. So I'm going to show you guys a secret placement that no one else is using, which I have to give credit to Bubbly. Bubbly is a sick individual in the head for thinking of this. Now, with that being said, I do also have to talk about some of my placements. Magda is possibly the best buffer in the game. If you don't know, everyone around her, kind of like a king in chess, and everywhere she's looking, which is only an extra tile, doesn't really matter. She gives damage increase, which is very valuable, and penetration increase. So the best way to maximize your damage is to build everyone around her because they all get buffed. So here you can see this Ingrid placement is really weird, right? This Ingrid placement is facing left. This is because her range is big enough. She's actually able to hit this entire side. And I put her here so we can utilize that weird Demi placement where she goes in the middle, which is super weird. Now, Demi in the middle, when she's A1, will actually hit every single side, which will make it so she can hit both sides at the same time, raising her damage to like over 2 billion at the end. And she actually shreds through everything in her range. So she's able to hit more units, do more damage, and when she's awakened, like mine is, you do even more damage. It's insane. And then everyone else is built around Magda. We have Beatrix on the corner, we have Valara on the ground, and then we have Ingrid and Demi, like I said. Ezra is the only one who doesn't get the buff. Right? We also have Carnelian here so that he can continuously get an orb. I know people are always very confused whenever I say that, you know, Ezreal lives, you know, Ezreal is the tank. As long as he has, very importantly, the most HP on the field, he will get targeted by the single target. Now, the way the single target works is it does one initial hit of a ton of damage and then puts out a damage over time, which slowly kills everything. So you either need a tank, you need a cheese unit like Ezreal, or you run Ezreal and you make sure he has a stack. So the way he works is he cannot be debuffed when he has one of these eyes above his head on the point of impact. So here he has an eye on his head, he's only going to take the initial hit and nothing else. That is what makes Ezreal so good as the tank here, because he doesn't get the damage over time, which will slowly kill him. So as long as you put a Carnelian orb, or you put like a Lily or an Airless buff, he will live, which is huge. So we have that going for us. Now, as you can see, we are doing a ton of score. The general timings, I do have to give full credit to SLL. SLL helped the most with my physical and timings in general. The general gist is, the way it works is the stacks in this fight are very important. The more stacks, the more HP and attack the mobs get, making them harder to kill, right? So what you're supposed to do is you're going to try to stop yourself from building so many stacks, right? But there's one attack, which is the silence phase, which is what you're saving your ults for. And when that silence phase happens, when it pops up, or even a little bit before, we're going to rip all of our ults and it's going to strip the stacks. Generally how it works. So all we do is we save those for when the silence phase appears and we ult at that point. So we don't ult earlier. This ends up making it so that we actually do more damage long term by timing it specifically like that, and it just makes things a bit safer. Also, Magda specifically, because her ult is so long, we ult at the second slam. As soon as it hits you, you're gonna Magda ult. You could go back in the footage if you want to see the specific timings. I was trying to explain the Ezreal thing because people always ask me because they're confused, which is okay. Now, something else I will say is throughout the entire fight, I look at the score at certain intervals, and what we're aiming for here for about a score that we need, which is around 118. I'm looking for about 105, 106 at a minute left. And you can see we're already at 105 with a full minute, which gives us time to obviously build up the rest of the score. And what we're going to do is we're going to Beelzebub ult a bit earlier. I know I didn't mention it when we got there, but basically, if you look back at about a minute 30, I make sure to Beelzebub ult, and then I Valara Demi when they're up. Then I instantly Beelzebub ult the next 2 times he's up, no matter what. Usually Beatrix is up with him. And then I save Valara and Demi so that they reach the end just fine. And the whole time I'm swapping Ezreal. It's just very complicated, to be honest, at the end. If you want to like slow down for the timings, the general gist is we're trying to slot in more Beelzebub and Beatrix ults because they're a lot faster. And we're trying to keep Beelzebub's uptime a little bit higher towards the end where the stacks no longer matter to manage them so well. So we're just trying to keep that inspiration up as much as possible. And then we're weaving in Valara and Demi a little bit slower because their ults come back slower. And this is going to give us 117, 600. Now I was able to get over 118, changed one artifact to make it better, and it lowered my damage. But here is the damage numbers. Like I said, Demi does a ton, and obviously Ingrid, Magda, Beatrix, Ezreal, and Valara are next. Beatrix will sometimes do more damage, but she didn't here, and that's okay. So that is number 1. So what we need to aim for is about an 82.4 or so thousand, which is what we are going to be getting on physical. So the physical theme is a little bit confusing. As you can see, these are the placements here. It's a little bit hard to show, but Leia is in the middle because her ultimate will cover everyone, giving the damage increase and the rage. Airless is right here. She gives extra rage when she heals, but she's mainly there to keep Adrian alive. Then we have Ardea up there. My Ardea is a 5, so she is going to extend her ultimate. I also have it specifically so that not only Adrian gets most of the healing, but Ardea actually loses her HP, which increases her damage, which is great. very important. And then we just have a somewhat even distribution of damage. Ardea is going to do the most, Neja is going to do the second most, but her damage is slightly skewed. And this is just the best formation. Then Rivenhold is able to give everyone inspiration. Now, something that was the most confusing to me is my Mina. My Mina does like no damage, or it did basically no damage, but I actually changed up the build, which uses, let's just call it a secret build, and you'll have to see it when I show the gear. Mina's gear is very important and very confusing, but not only that, the way she works is very confusing. So all I could kind of figure out is Mina does more damage when she feels like it. Not only that, she takes the highest attack, which is Ardea, so you want Ardea to be ulting, ideally when Mina ults, which is going to make her damage go sicko mode. As you can see, she is at about 2.3 million damage. And this is just because Ardea was ulting, and yeah. Now, apart from that, I do find that you do want to Leia ult before you Mina ult. That just kind of generally raises the damage a little bit. It's a little confusing, I will be honest. And something else I managed to figure out with the help of some others is Rivenhold's a better lord for her, but still with Elder, she's doing like 2.4 mil, right? Earlier, I was struggling to get above 80k, and she was doing 800k with the same build, and it just makes no sense. So if your Mina's not doing damage, just try to time her with Ardea, Leia a little bit earlier, make sure Rivenhold is active, and then if you ult with her, she should do good damage, but I don't freaking know. She was probably the most frustrating character I've had to figure out, and it's the most frustrating because I still don't know how she works. So if anyone has any kind of insight of why her damage would fluctuate so heavily, it's not fluctuating now. I didn't change anything, but her damage fixed itself. So that's a little bit annoying. Like even there, Ardea didn't ult and she's still doing 2 mil. And I had everything done perfectly before and she was doing like 1 million damage. And it was so silly. But either way, we're just gonna continue the auto. The main things at this point are just kind of the same as the magic. We are obviously ulting right before the silence phase. Now with about 1:30, we're actually going to ult a little bit early. This is so that we're able to use Tallulah and Leia to gain back the rage, so we can slot in 2 more ult cycles at the end of the fight that we wouldn't have been able to before. This is going to give us like 1,000 more score. So that is why I'm ulting a little bit early here. But for the most part, we Neja about halfway through the second slam on the bar, and then we're going to use the rest of the ults when the silence phase is about to pop up. Adrian, I do have to say that he will be saved by airless one time, but you do have to make sure that his ult is active. So I find that it's best to ult with him about, 3 or 4 seconds after the first AoE strike. I wait a tiny bit, then I ult with him, and he's actually going to maintain his shield for the rest of that cycle, which is going to keep him alive just fine. As you can see, though, we are getting above 80k. We have a couple more ults coming out at the end, and we're going to boost ourselves up to 82,500, which is exactly 200k. So this was very annoying. A lot of changes had to be made. Ardea does 1.8 bill, Neja does 1.4, Esther does about 880, and then Elder, I don't know why, is doing so much damage. And then Mina raised her damage by like 200 mil when I just ran the auto after reset. So I don't know why her damage increased so much, but hey, we take it. Same with Elder. That was like the last 3k I needed was just from augments and better RNG. Now, before I go into the gear, I do have to explain a little bit of a interaction with how the game works. So I'll try to explain it. It's a little hard to get an example because I don't want to F up my score. But when it comes to gear, the gear does save. As you can see, it does say that the gear can't be saved between, but you can update the gear. And as long as you don't press any save buttons and you press the auto fight, it'll always maintain the hero's gear and artifact info. But this is misleading because it's actually wrong. That doesn't work properly. What I mean by this is, for example, Magda had this Hates Contagion. This Hates Contagion had about 3% crit damage before I got different artifacts, right? I got different augments. So I changed it to 4.4% attack bonus, which on paper is better. You know, I could change this 4.4 to a 6.1. And what will happen is my score will change. My auto will change. And this is because augments change the autos. Even if the gear is saved, if I were to augment this piece to above 2%, it would make it so my damage would either go higher or go lower. So remember what I said about augments. I augmented my Elder exclusive. I augmented my Mina exclusive, which is, I'll get to this in a second. And this changed my auto, it changed the RNG, it changed how ults work. If you go back to the replay at around a minute, Estrid does not ult, and I have to take it off and fix it, which is what I did, but I did it too late. So she ends up ulting after Leia, lowering my score, but it still was better because the auto changed for the better. It just doesn't make sense. So I do have to kind of give a disclaimer that if you do want to change your auto, you can modify gear. But also if you don't want to change your auto and you modify gear, it's going to change it. Okay, so that's very important there. Now I do want to go over physical first because the gear is the most important here. Number one, Mina is better in crit damage. So as you can see here, I do have this attack bonus main. Crit damage is generally better, but this worked better for me because this variant is very good. Basic attributes increased is always nice. And, you know, I don't have a great crit damage main. Then I have a crit damage main here, a crit damage main here with some HP. Then I have a quad, and then I have another quad. This is just because I didn't really need more HP because she wasn't dying. So I figured, why not just make her a bit stronger, right? Then the Unfortunate Skull is actually her best artifact. It is so weird, but her kit makes her actually do more with crit damage, and it allows her to do more with something like this. For some reason, lowering her attack increases her damage. So this is actually the best artifact, but you do have to kind of keep in mind that she is going to take more damage. So if you need more HP, you build her with more HP. Now, beyond this point, Ardea here, we have just as much attack as I can. She has my best Soulbound set. And the more attack that she has, the more attack that Mina gains, which is going to increase the damage. Very good variant there. I have this crazy chest plate, which I'm not going to say much about. And this weapon, I'm not going to say much about. Crazy gear, obviously. Like I said, only like freaking 5 people have done this yet. So the gear has to be top notch. Now, beyond that point, we also have Neja. Neja has a Watchguard quad, which is the best. Then we also have some other kata pieces. No crit chest. If you can run enough crit rate, this is actually the best chest in the game. And then we have the Fire-Tipped Spear, of course. Elder here, I have Infernal Roar. Infernal Roar is a little bit better. As you can see, I do have a quad there because I didn't have any more no crit chests that were worth it. So I was actually able to run this piece, which was slightly better for me. And then Talisman of Resolve, 35% increased damage. When shielded, he always is shielding himself. Estrid, we have Soulbound. This is just, you know, the best Soulbound I had left. I rolled this piece like a week ago. Crazy piece there. And then some quads as well. We have more crit rate than we need. I don't really care. I've Sin was best for me. If you have a maxed Hates Contagion, it should be better, but the only one I have is on Magda, who needs it a bit more. Then we have Adrian. Adrian, you want to have HP bonus, and then you want to look for crit rate, attack speed, and crit damage. So something like this. Obviously, you're going to want a little bit of flat HP or rage regen or something for the 4th stat. I don't have the best pieces of gear for this. And then this is a little bit lacking because ideally you want to have something like this. These substats, I wasn't able to get them, so my build lacked a little bit of damage. And then Frost Devourer is the best artifact. Mine's at base. Would have been better if it was max. Then we have Rivenhold, which you just want as much attack as possible. Attack speed doesn't matter. Rage doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. You just build him with as much attack as you can. Dwarven Strider is best. If you can get an attack augment, it will actually be better, but I was lazy. Leia, I do have with a decent amount of rage. Keep in mind, mine is not a 3, so she doesn't restore her own rage. So she actually needs a little bit of rage built on in order to keep up. And then I also have some healing stats just to keep Adrian alive a little bit better. Exclusive is very important. This is where some RNG can kind of play into it. You know, if Mina gets 30% crit damage, she's going to increase her damage a lot, right? That is purely RNG based off of her exclusive. Airless, you want to have a certain amount of HP. Healers, you want to have about plus 14,000, plus 15,000 HP in my opinion. And I had a bunch of healing stats there just to keep the Adrian alive. And then North's Glory is actually the best because Adrian survives better and deals more damage when he has shield. So what do? You put the artifact that gives shield. Best artifact for her in a lot of content. Then we have Tallulah. Tallulah has about 17k HP. She almost dies at the end, surprisingly. And then her stats kind of don't matter. She doesn't really heal. Then I have her exclusive. You could run Euphoric Orb if you want. I don't. That is the gear for physical. Going into magic, we have Ezerith. Ezerith only needs 1 HP sub as long as you build everyone else without too much HP. So what we do is we make it so that he has the most HP with 1 HP sub. Then I'm able to run some Cataclysm pieces on the right. And I also have this in order to crit cap him. Great variant, I know. Whatever. Frigid Flame here. Hates Contagion is technically better, but I don't have enough of them. So that's what we have. Beelzebub, on the other hand, you want to build as much attack as you can. And I built him with a lot of HP. I had over 31,000 HP because he kept dying at the end. He would be saved by the Karn Orb, but like I said, they lose 50% rage, so you end up having to build him with enough HP so he doesn't die, so he's able to ult one more time, which increases your score. So that was a little bit of a balancing act there. Then Magda needs some really good gear. We have Cultist Ring as well as Kata pieces here, and then we also have a no crit chest, not crazy rolls, and then a crit rate quad. Everyone has a quad on. I have more than enough to go around. They're very hard to get, but you know, if you're lucky, you're lucky. Here I have Demi in a cursed exclusive. She's in Hell's Lament. You want to build her with enough HP to live. So instead of doing a piece like this, which is for more damage, you could also do one with HP bonus. She wasn't dying for me. And then you also want to have some really cracked out gear on her. You want to have some of your best gear on her because, well, she's doing most of the damage. And as long as she lives, you're fine. Tear of Twilight, of course. Mages always get Tear of Twilight unless they have a better exclusive. Beatrix here, I do have another cursed ring. This is the best third cursed ring I have. Then we have her exclusive, which I have Rage Regen on her. And then we have this, which is more rage, which isn't needed, but it's what I had. And then increases basic attributes of not a faction team member. She is, doesn't make a difference. Then I have this just for extra damage, and then this quad as well. It's just the best I could build her when she has, you know, less gear than the others. Then Ingrid, I have Infernal Roar. We're going for straight attack. She's not going to die, so we don't have to worry too much. I had a tiny bit of HP though, because of what I had. Then we have Tear of Twilight right there. Balara is going to have some Kata pieces, including the exclusive ring. And then I had a quad chest on because, well, I don't have enough no crit chests. And I had this piece, which doesn't have crit rate. That's very good. And I wanted to have that one on. Instead, we have the exclusive on as well. Narissa, you want to build with as much attack as you can. You want to have a little bit of HP. I'd recommend around plus 10k if you can. As you can see, we are giving up some attack speed in order to get some attack and HP bonus and healing effect, of course. As you can see here, it's what I have, right? She doesn't really need that much attack speed because you don't really need that much healing output in New Matrix, and then Euphoric Orb right there as well. Carnelian does have a decent amount of attack speed. We're looking for a decent amount of HP. 1 HP main was enough for me. Once again, healers, you want to have about plus 14k at least. And then we just have as much attack speed as we can. Tia's Balm is the best for her. And then Elowen we have here with just the amount of HP we need. A little bit of healing stats. The rest doesn't really matter. Scarab as well. That is the gear. Like I said, very good gear, but hopefully this gives you a baseline of what to work with. And I hope that what I showed you will help you out with getting a higher score. But either way, I wanted to show off my 200k team. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hopefully 250 becomes possible in the future. I do think that after Rosalia comes out, I do think that 130k is possible on Magic, is what we're theorizing. And I do think that 90k is almost possible right now on Physical with the new team that I will cover later. But we'll have to see with that. And that only really gets us 30k off. So it's still nowhere near. Anyways, with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. I do appreciate it. And I'll see you on the next one. Destined signing out.